Most teams manage to make good attacks, but very few of them understand why their attacks work or don't. Some coaches are familiar with the 5 principles of play, but they rarely train them, and even more rarely they use them with clarity and intention. In this video, we will focus on constraints. How to design exercises that naturally bring these principles to life, and at what age and stage players should start learning them. This is not about memorizing concepts. It's about understanding how attacking football really works. Now, let's start by understanding what the principles of attack really are, and why they matter. Penetration, in my opinion, is the most important attacking principle. But penetration can never exist on its own. To be effective, it needs the support of all the other attacking principles. We can achieve penetration in 2 main ways. The first one is through passing, playing around, over, or through the opponent's defensive shape. The second way is through dribbling, beating an opponent directly and creating progress with the ball. The easiest and often most dangerous way to penetrate is during the transition from defense to attack. This is exactly why so many coaches are obsessed with transition moments, because the opponent is disorganized and the opportunity to play forward is immediate. So how do we actually train penetration? The key is not the exercise itself, but the constraints we use to encourage forward play. The first and most basic idea is simple: create the habit of playing forward. One effective method is using zones. For example, a rondo with 2 zones, where the only way to move into the next zone is by passing or dribbling through a line, depending on the behavior we want to train. The same principle can be applied in directional games with goals, where players are naturally encouraged to play forward. This approach is very effective in the early learning stages, from around 8 or 9 years old. Before that age, the focus should be mainly on individual technique, and the most natural way to introduce penetration is through dribbling. As players progress, we can introduce more complex forms. Rondos with transitions and zones are an excellent way to connect penetration with real game moments. At later stages, we can train penetration within specific zones of the pitch: the build-up zone, the middle or creation zone, and the final third. We can also link penetration to different phases of the game: organized attack, defense to attack transition, and even recovery moments. The principle remains the same: create conditions that encourage players to play forward with purpose. Without support, penetration is impossible. If all teammates run forward at the same time, the only solution left is to kick the ball long. Support is what allows penetration to continue and to be repeated. Support can appear in 3 main directions. Upward support, to help penetrate forward. Backward support, to recycle possession. And sideways support, to change the point of attack. Distances are crucial when we talk about support. Players need close options, but not too close, otherwise they attract pressure and block space. At the same time, we need farther options, to move the ball quickly out of pressure when necessary. Support is not only about position, but also about how players show for the ball, body orientation, angle, and timing. Most effective support structures naturally create triangles and diamonds around the ball. At more advanced stages, we can again use zones as a constraint. After the ball is played into a new zone, players must move to support the ball carrier. Later on, we can train support within specific areas of the pitch: the build-up zone, the middle zone, and the final zone. At this stage, support is no longer random movement, but part of the team's playing principles and sub-principles. The goal is always the same: to give the player on the ball multiple, clear, and functional options. Again, to penetrate, we need space. And space does not appear by chance, it is created. Making space includes width, depth, and also space around the ball. This principle can be introduced quite early, once players start playing 5v5. At the basic level, we can train this principle using simple constraints. Wide channels help players understand the idea of stretching the pitch. Games with 4 wide goals encourage players to look away from the ball and recognize space on the far side. At this stage, the goal is not perfect positioning, but awareness. For penetration to be possible, space is essential. Very often, that space is created by players who are far from the ball. These players must believe in the team structure, accept their role, and wait for the right moment. Width and depth are not passive positions, they are active contributions to the attack. As players develop, we can refine how space is created. During build-up, we can work on how wide players should position themselves. We can also define the role of wide players or wingbacks, whether they stay high, stay wide, or hold a position that supports recovery and rest defense. At this stage, width and depth are no longer general ideas, but part of the team's playing model. Mobility, or movement, is what connects all attacking principles. It is mainly about movement without the ball. Small details before receiving the ball, a fake movement, a change of direction, or a short adjustment, often make the biggest difference. Through movement, we can create space. Space for a teammate. Space for ourselves. Or space for the next action. These movements can be backward, forward, sideways, or diagonal. Mobility can be trained from a very early stage. Simple games like 2v1 or 3v2 naturally encourage movement without the ball. Rondos are especially effective, because players must constantly adjust their position to offer passing options. At this stage, the focus is not on patterns, but on awareness and timing. As players develop, mobility becomes more structured. We can introduce rotations, underlaps, and overlaps between players. The mobility helps players understand how movement can destabilize the opponent and create new passing lines. Only after players understand the importance of movement as a principle, can we start teaching tactical patterns. Mobility should never be mechanical. It must always serve a purpose within the team structure. Finally, we have creativity. Creativity is what makes the difference in the final third. A quick 1-2 combination. A brave dribble. An unexpected solution. This is often what decides the game. Creativity cannot be forced. It must be allowed. That is why creativity should be trained from the very first training session a child attends. Players need time with the ball. They need freedom to explore, to make mistakes, and to try again. Small-sided games are one of the best environments to develop creativity. Creativity does not mean chaos. It exists within structure. The attacking principles give players a framework. Creativity gives them the freedom to solve problems inside that framework. When principles and creativity work together, the game becomes unpredictable and effective. The 5 principles of attack are not isolated ideas. They are connected. Penetration gives us direction. Support gives us options. Making space creates the conditions. Mobility activates the structure. And creativity gives players the freedom to decide. These principles exist at every level of the game. What changes is not the principle, but the way we train it. Our role as coaches is not to give players answers. It is to design constraints, environments, and situations that help them discover solutions. When players understand the principles, the game becomes clearer. And when the game is clear, better decisions follow. If you found this video useful, make sure to like it and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how you train these principles in your own sessions. For more in-depth content, practical exercises, and ready-to-use training ideas linked to each principle, you can find them on my Patreon. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more content focused on learning, understanding, and teaching the game. Thanks for watching.